All right, so where I am. Let's do beginner first. Question number 1. Yeah. Spell video game name. So we receive how many arguments, guys? One. What's the type of the argument? String. Fantastic. Easy peasy. We have a string and we need to spell the video game name. G-O-D space blah 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 blah. Yeah? Cool. There are many different ways to solve the problem. However, according to the exercise, we should use for off. Right, Steffi? Nico? Cool. Johnny? Cool. Fantastic. So, that's not because that's necessarily the best way to solve it. I mean, I wouldn't personally use for off, but I think it's important to get used to different looping structures, even if they are not your favorite ones. Yeah? It's like, you know, people drinking whiskey. It's good from time to time to try gin or vodka. Sorry, that was a stupid example, right? So let's ignore the last 20 seconds and let's just select to do a bit of coding. All right, so I got my argument. I could call it X or I or stuff, but thinking of semantics, I'm going to call it video game. Is video game one word or two words? Apparently it's two words, right? Video game name. Yeah, that's pretty consistent. Spell video game name. All right, I receive a video game name. Yeah? Let me improve the contrast of the screen just a bit. Cool, fantastic. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to create an array of characters. Yeah? That's the way you create an empty variable. And I'm going to fill the variable with the individual characters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. Eventually, I will return it before I forget. You see, I don't used to follow a chronological order. I don't go line number 1, then line number 2. First of all, I prepare the exercise, and then I'll focus on the complexity, which in this particular case is the for loop. So, for of works in the following way. For, we create a variable, let character, of characters. Not characters, sorry, video game name. Yeah? So it will iterate over each character and then it will save it into that variable. So then you tell me, what do we need to do now with that variable? Push, like that? You need to pass, what was the argument? So characters that push character. This is recursive, that will destroy the internet. Character that push characters like that? No. The opposite. Characters, that's the array, push each individual character. Yeah? Can you tell me, guys, if my video game is FIFA 21, how many times line number 5 will run? 7, correct. 1 for each character, including the space. Easy, right? Anything else? No? That's it, right? Let's try it. Fantastic, confetti time. No elegance issues. All right. So, let's focus on your code. So, the strategy is correct. I may only complain about the naming conventions. STR, R, yeah. Letter is fine. That's the only variable name I agree with, but all the others are not that great. Yeah. For Damiano, slightly better. At least he creates an array of characters. Yeah, string is probably not the only concern, right? But yeah, all good for him. For Nico, wrong. For Steffi, wrong. For Moontain, wrong. You know why wrong, right? Not because I don't like the code. The code, I'll tell you something. If I had to do it, I'll use a split. But that doesn't prove you don't know how to code. That proves you didn't read instructions, which is a different problem, right? The first person with perfect naming conventions will get a positive point. Yeah? So for instance, Chris, string, value, Johnny, I like that. So name, all right, vehicle name, spell name array, push, element, element. I don't like element. What is element, right? That should be probably character or letter, right? Again, I know that maybe I'm a bit picky sometimes with these things, but if you're sending a test to a company, they look after the readability of your code, right? So same for Gideon. It's all good, but I'm not a big fan of using string and value. All right, why didn't work for Kevin? Can anyone spot the problem? Correct. So there are two problems here. First of all, Kevin, we don't use the word get here, right? Just function and then the name of the function. Then another controversial aspect is, look, that's the name of your function, but name your variable on the next line has the same name. Yeah? Where is Kevin? Yeah. So we shouldn't reuse the same name because then we have a conflict. Yeah? Then do we refer to the variable name or to the function name? Yeah, that's not a good pattern. But apart from these two little things, the code was correct. Yeah, so well done. And then for Clarissa, almost perfect under my point of view. Yeah, again, I'm not a big fan of index because that's not even an index. That's wrong. Yeah. So look, if you call it value, that tells me nothing. I don't really like it, but tells me nothing. But if you call it index, it's even worse, right? Because value, what's value? I don't know. But if you say this is an index, actually, wait. Oh, for in. So Clarissa is not using for of neither, right? That's why she's using index. For Joshua, the same thing. What else? Simon. What's that, Simon? Array God, right? So the thing is, your variable name, I get his point, right? He's thinking on that particular scenario. Because the video game name is God of War, right? But as soon as we change the video game name, imagine that I join your team and the first thing I see is that, right? That thingy, array God. Like, oh, that's a good array, eh? It's very powerful. Yeah? Liz is using for off. Cool. Any questions, guys? No? All right. So let's jump to question number 2, which is pretty similar, right? See, out of coincidence, the second question is very similar to the first one. So, what we got here? Same thing, right? One string, tennis player, and then we need to again go one after the other, again using for off. I'm not going to give any additional negative point, of course, for off. And the only difference is, rather than saving the characters into an array as such, we need to capitalize them. We need to convert them to big characters. Yeah? If we receive small a, we need to print big A, and so on. All right, so again, the structure is very similar. First of all, argument, display player in capitals. What's the argument? Is it value? Is it X? Is it Brexit? No. I like to call it player or player name. Say it again? Tennis player, I like that. Tennis player or tennis player name. Again, this is not rocket science, it's just common sense, right? All of these are good under my point of view. Tennis player name, I like that. And now, let's create a variable. I could call it characters. So characters equals empty array. But I'm going to play a bit hard here, a bit harder, because I know there's going to be an array of capital characters, capital characters. Yeah, I'm offering more information to the developer. And then once again, I'll return it. So in between, for let character of tennis player name, then what? Capital characters dot push character. Why not, Johnny? To uppercase. I like that, Gideon. So you know in JavaScript, if you have a string, you can do a string dot to uppercase. Be extremely careful, guys. To capital U, capital C. Yeah. Some people say this. Well, that doesn't work, right? Because that doesn't exist. That will throw an error. To uppercase. Yeah. So we are saving the capital version of each variable. What happens if the character is already capital?
It's going to return the same amount.
The same. Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all. So we don't need any if else. That's fine. Eh? Let's keep it simple. All right. Will this work? Will this work or not?
Yes.
Yes. Any warning? Any elegance issue? No. All right. So let's test it. It works. All good. Cool. So what do you do here, guys? So again, I believe what we discussed about in the previous question applies here, right? It's mostly about naming conventions. Yeah. At least this time, so people is using for off. Yeah. So just to compensate, I will give you a positive point. I don't know who got the negative point on the previous one. I mean, this is not relevant, right? Don't worry about that. So it was Steffi, Nico, and Clarissa, and Joshua, Muntain, quite a lot of people, right? Nico for off, all good. Anyway, I'll review that later on, don't worry. But yeah, so everybody did pretty much the same thing. Again, you see, Johnny, I like player name. I like, well, players name array. Not a big fan of that. Players. Do you have more than one player? No, only one, right? So let's keep it in singular. Cool. Anything else, guys? No? So let's jump straight to question number 3. Oh, I like that. This is a really good question. Really good question on beginner training. Find the sexy artist. So we have how many arguments? One. What type of data the argument is? Wrong. Array. We have an array of free, but let's try to create an abstract solution. It should work with 3 objects, but it should work with 5 or with 20 million, right? It's about creating robust software. I'm not going to assume my array has 3 elements. No. Cool, I have an array of objects. So we need to find the sexy artist. We have a flag, is sexy. And according to the exercise, there will be only one sexy artist on each list. Yeah, there's a limitation of this exercise. All right, so find sexy artists. We have a list of artists. So, return. How do we find something in JavaScript? Find, yeah, that's pretty predictable. Artist.find. And now let's look after the syntax. We receive a callback function. So that's the argument. So we are going to iterate for each artist. Return artist.isSexy equals true for now. Yeah. So for now, how this works? So we are going to loop over the array of artists. So if we have 3 artists, line number 3 will run
3 times?
up to 3 times. Up to 3 times. We'll talk about it in a minute, why up to. And then, as soon as any of the artists have the isSexy property set to true, it will return it straight away.
So that's why you think up to 3 times?
Up to 3 times.
That's the reason why?
Yes, we'll see. We'll see why up to. Could be less than that. In worst case scenario, it will run 3 times. Will this work or not?
Need to return it.
We are returning it. The name. Look at what happened if I evaluate it. It doesn't really work.
Because you need to use the return keyword outside of
It's here. Why it doesn't work, guys? Look at the error. Artist is defined but never used. Correct. I did that on purpose. That's a classic problem when you start dealing with find. Yeah? That's wrong. That's wrong. Artists, that is sexy, doesn't make sense. We want to check for each individual artist if he or she is sexy or not. Yeah? That's the issue. Let's try again. Oops, sorry. And now it doesn't work neither, as Nico pointed out before. Look, we are pointing to the right artist. We are pointing to the right artist. However, the exercise is expecting us to return a string, only the name.
So dot name?
Aha, fantastic. Because we got an object, how do we access the property name out of that object? Yeah, as Joshua said, dot name. Yeah, if we type dot name and we try again, it works. So find is arguably the most important module on the beginner training. If you didn't understand that, please run this exercise until your fingers start bleeding, yeah? Because you go nowhere in JavaScript without understanding find. If you think about it, it's not that complicated. You have a list, and then you want to find something. And now there is something very important. As soon as your artist is found, we stop. Stop. In other words, line number 3. How many times will it run?
2 times.
Correct. In this particular case, it will run only twice. It will stop here. Is Danny a sexy artist? No. Next step. Is Brad a sexy artist? Yes. Will Barbara be even checked? No. It will be completely ignored. And likewise, here, how many times it will stop on line number 3?
3 times?
In that particular case, it will stop 3 times. It will stop here. Is that true? No. Next one. Is that true? No. Next one. Is that true? Yes. So this is the worst case scenario where we need to go until the end of the list to find a sexy artist. That's pretty much it. Let me show you how to improve that or how to simplify that a bit. Whenever we have this structure, sexy artist equal true, that's a bit redundant. You don't need to do that. You can simply do that. Because if artist.isSexy is truthy, evaluates to true, we'll see in the future truthy values. But for now, if that returns true, that's it. Yeah? I'm not asking you to do that. If you feel more comfortable doing that, go for it. Yeah? Again, coding is not about writing the most efficient solution. It's about writing code that you understand and you can maintain. Yeah? But from a simplicity point of view, that's even easier. And we can simplify even more. Whenever you have that structure, you have a function, you see the arrow function, curly brackets, and then you return something. You can get rid of the return statement and you can put it in one line. Look. Even easier. Yeah? Artist.find. What do I want to find? I want to find an artist that is sexy. And once I've found it, then return the name. If you struggle a bit with that syntax, you can always create variables. You're always welcome to create variables. You can do let sexy artist in singular equals. Yeah, you leave it there, and finally return what?
Sexy artist.
Correct. Up to you. That depends on your appetite. Well, let's see if it works, right? Yes, it does work. Any questions? No? All right, so let's have a look to your code. Question number 3. Cool. So Cam, he did something pretty similar. He created a variable. My main concern, as you can probably smell already, is on calling a variable x. Tells me nothing, right, about what are we trying to do. Yeah. Also, he's using a classic function. So you know that in JavaScript, we have arrow functions. Let me go back to what we had before. Yeah. So these are modern arrow functions, but you can do that as well. So these two are equivalent. You see? That's a function here. So that is the same as that. Different syntax. The same. On the last week of the bootcamp, we'll see some subtle differences, but 99% of the time, they are equivalent. Why this is more popular today? Because it's just simpler. Yeah? It's simpler. You can do that. This is what in Python, in other languages, you call a Lambda function. Yeah? You have an argument and you return something straight away. With a classic function, you cannot do that, unfortunately. So you cannot do that. If I do that, that won't work. Look, red code. Yeah? That strategy doesn't work with classic functions. So anyway, that depends on your appetite. I'm not against classic functions. I'm against the readability, or the lack of readability, of course. Cool. I really like what Damiano did. Look, sexy artist.find. Yeah, that's unnecessary. But just because of the naming conventions, I'll give a positive point to Damiano. And for Muntahin, artist.find. Can anyone see any elegance issue on Muntahin? First of all, it's long, I agree, but it's maybe not correct. It's subtle, guys, subtle. But Mountain here, we need a space. Yeah, that's the only thing, but all good apart from that. And for Chris, it's on the other way around. That space is unnecessary. Yeah. For Yoni, fantastic. Very clean and tidy, yeah? Artist.find, artist is sexy, don't name. Well done, Johnny. And for Clarissa, oh, that's interesting. She's using filter. So filter.
Oh, filter isn't going to stop at the first.
No, find stops as soon as your condition is satisfied. If your condition is satisfied on the first element, it will stop on the first element. Filter, however, goes until the end. And if there is more than one result, it will return them all. Yeah? So find makes sense if you only want to get one. And filter makes sense if you want to return multiple. Yeah? So let me think about an example. If I live in the forest and I want to get all the animals with 4 legs, will I use find or filter? Filter, because I want to get more than one animal, right? If I want to get married, that was a bit weird example, will I use find or filter? Find, because you want to find one wife, right? Look at what Clarissa had to do, right? So if Clarissa is looking for a husband, so she's using filter, but because filter return multiple husbands, but she only is looking for one husband, essentially, you see what she needs to do, right? Just to get the first one. So that's a good way to compare find and filter. In this particular case, she's using filter in a similar way as using find. But I hope you agree that's a bit.
If she gets rid of the 0, will it still work?
No. What happened? Okay, let's try that. That's a good question actually. I love these questions.
Yeah, because the find the value, but filter the return the array.
That's correct, Simon. Look.
That is the problem.
If I remove the 0, it's like, give me all my husbands, and I try it, it doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Why? Even though, unfortunately, the login is not great, artist.filter, that will return what type of data the highlighted code will return? Array, correct. We cannot do array.name. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Yeah? If we have an array, we need to access the first element, and then once we have the first element, we can access the property of the element. Yeah? From a performance point of view, which one is more performant? Is it find or filter?
Find.
Find. Imagine that, I mean, in this case, it doesn't make any difference. But if you have an array of 1 million elements, and you want to get the first one that satisfies some criteria, imagine that your desired element is the first one. Yeah? Again, you're looking for a wife. You have a million of possibilities. But your, the wife of your dreams is the first one on the list. Using find, you'll get it immediately, right? Using filter, you'll go until the end of the list, and then at the end, you'll select the first one, yeah? So again, filter, of course, is super important, but only if you want to get multiple elements. Find and filter, guys, the most important training topics of JavaScript beginner. Cool. And what else? So Simon, again filter, right? And Sanjay, very sexy as well, using find. Cool. I think that's it, guys. Any questions? No? Cool. I'm going to skip question number 4 because it's the same as 1 and 2, right? Instead of 4 off, is 4 in. So the main difference is, can anyone tell me the main difference between 4 in and 4 off?
One returns the index, and the other one the character.
Correct. So 4 in returns the index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, while 4 off returns the value. Nothing particularly exciting, yeah, in this particular case. Cool. I'm going to skip this one, guys, because otherwise we won't have time to do a couple of questions on intermediate. What's wrong? That's a good question. What's wrong? So we have a function that is supposed to triple only odd numbers. So we have an odd number, like 5, is to triple it. 5 will return 15. If we have an even number, it should return it as it is. Yeah? And now the code is partially done already. Here we give you a hint, right? This is under, you know, that red line implies something around is not correct. What's that operator, guys? The modulus, or reminder, yes? So that means that what's the result of getting the modulus of 7 divided by 2? It's 1, yeah? Because 7 divided by 2 is 3, and then we have 1 left, right? So, in other words, here we're checking if the number is odd. Yeah, because if it's even, the modulus will be what? 0, correct, well done. Okay, so if it's odd, multiply by 3 and return it. If it's even, return it. So the structure is correct. If else, all good. However, what's the problem? Brackets. Every time you have more than one statement in an if else, you need to surround it with brackets. Yeah, for sure. What happens if we have only one? Do we need brackets? No. If we have one, they're optional. However, from a personal point of view, I always drop the brackets. It's a matter of good practices. Why? Because if tomorrow I want to add something new, that won't work. Because now that line is outside of the if-else logic. However, if I keep the brackets or the braces always in place, I can safely add something here. Yeah? I think, to me, maybe it's a personal feeling, but it's more readable. With a bracket, I can clearly see the scope of that piece of code. All right, will it work? Yes, it works. Cool. So I'm not expecting anyone doing any magic here. That's, you know, pretty straightforward. So let's have a look. Good, good, good. Good, good. Any warning for Steffi?
Oh, the space between the curly bracket and...
Correct, Joseph. See, Steffi? Why you changed that? That code was there already. You removed the space. I don't like it. Cool. Good for Nico. Good for Gideon. Good for Johnny. Good for Chris. Good for Josue. Clarissa. And Sanjay. And Simon. And that's it, right?
But do you
Okay, what?
between the if, or
Yeah.
obviously you don't need a space between if.
No, spaces will never break your code. This is a matter of good practices. In JavaScript, it's a good practice to add spaces surrounding your operators. Equal, 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 modulus, equal, parentheses, spaces everywhere.
I mean, because between, you know, you've got the if statement,
Yeah,
and then you've got the open bracket.
yeah, that one.
But you don't need to put space? No, on the, yeah?
Yeah, the start. You know,
Yeah.
Start here,
After if, yeah.
Yeah.
that space.
So where if is? See,
Yes.
Ah, here.
Yeah.
Ah,
Because it was
yeah, it's a good point.
it was given to us without...
Yeah, no, I don't think, no, I don't think when we have a for loop or when using parentheses in that way, we don't use spaces. Yeah?
Okay.
Again, I know that these things sometimes is like a bit weird, right? Like why sometimes not. But this is like languages, right? Why some languages they have gender? Why a table in most of the languages is female and a car is male, right? The way things work, right? You need to get used to it.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else, guys, regarding beginner? No? Well, anyway, the thing is, even though sometimes, as I say, I'm a bit extreme with my concerns, if I'm complaining about the spaces or variable names or indentation, that means that it's working, yeah? If that's the worst thing I can find in your code, that's great. So just keep working in that way. Cool, so let's have a look to intermediates. I'm going to solve a couple of questions only, the two most important ones that I found today. That's the first one. The first one is really good. It's really good. So it's probably the first time ever that we have to create not one function but multiple. Create an arrays utility component. Yeah. So we need to be able to add elements to array, to remove elements from array. Yeah. All these things. All these things. Cool. First of all, append. Append means add a new element at the end of the array. Yeah. We have an array of fruits, orange, apple, and banana, and we want to add pineapple. Yeah. So we add the pineapple at the end of the basket. Yeah. So let's focus on the first one. Append. Look, you have how many arguments?
2.
Correct. Type of arguments.
Array and string.
Array and string. Fantastic. Fantastic. We have an array. That's the list. And then we want to add bodies because of whatever dark reason to our array of data, right? So can we provide semantics, guys? Well, are we talking... the exercise is not talking about any semantics. Looking at the examples, it looks like we're talking about characters, right? But again, for sure it's people, right? Particularly people, not very opinionated here. And then I want to add a person. Yeah, I want to add a person at the end of the list of people. So how do we add the elements to an array at the end of the array, guys? Correct. So we can do people.push person for now. Yeah. So push will add the element at the end. Let's try that. Return people.push. See if it works. Prepend. Again, the same problem. People, person. How do we add an element, a person, at the beginning on top of the array? Correct. People dot and shift person. And how do we, if we have a list of people, how do we delete the first one? It's shift. Look, and shift adds a new element on top. Shift removes an element from the top of the array. And finally, how do we delete the last person of an array? Pop. Again, I'm not defending that piece of code. Yeah? This is at least what I will try as a first attempt. Let's evaluate it. Let's see what happened. Nothing worked. Let's analyze bit by bit. Let me focus on delete first. So delete first. Based on that code, Donald and Kim, you return Donald. It's like, what the hell? So I'm returning a string instead of the array? That's a bit weird. If we look at the delete last, it's pretty similar. Yeah? Delete last, we have an array of 2 elements, and we are returning a string. That's a bit weird, right? Why? Oh, it could get even worse, right? Even if we understand that, let's have a look to the append. You return free? What the hell? Why free? So this is a good exercise to get a touch about how crazy classic JavaScript was. Yeah? It would be unthinkable today to release these APIs, but in the late 90s, this thing happened. Yeah? So the push, shift, unshift, pop API is very weird. It's very weird. It's like a wild cat. We need to be careful with it. Yeah? So, first of all, you cannot do that. You cannot return, you cannot, or let me rephrase that. Push will add the value. So the highlighted piece of code is correct. However, can anyone tell me what push returns? The length, the new length of the array. Why? Without being under the effects of width, you can consider this is a valid API. That's completely strange, but it's how it works. So, if we want to do that, we need first of all add the element, and once the element has been added, return the array. And the same principle applies to all the other methods, because with delete first, it's essentially returning the element that you have deleted. I mean, this is clearly not as crazy as the push and unshift, but that's still controversial. Yeah? So the same thing, delete first, you delete it, and then you return the array. And with delete last, same thing, you delete it, and then you return it. Let's see what happened this time. Oh, you know, when you think you got it, but one of the assertions failed. Well, everything else is right. So now we can focus on that particular bit. So append. It worked well on the very first scenario. So, you know, Donald, Kim, Boris, it works. But now, look at what we got here. According to this exercise, if we attempt to push something weird, like an empty array, it's not following the patterns, right? Because we were assuming that we were trying to append strings, A, B, C, D. But here we're trying to append something weird, an array. So the exercise is expected to be robust enough to control that. If you try to push something weird, ignore it. However, we are definitely pushing an empty array. That's why it doesn't work. You see the problem? So how can we control that? Well, I'd like to show you two ways, the classic and the sexy. So the classic way to solve the problem is, you can control that, right? So you can do things like if person.length, okay? So if you know that the length method works with both strings and array. So hello.length will return what? 5. It depends on how you spell it, right? H-E-L-L-O, H-E-L-L-O, we told 5. And if I have an array of fruits, orange, apple, banana, fruits.length will return 3, correct. So length works with strings and arrays. On the 7th week of the bootcamp, on the 13th of December, most likely, we'll talk about something very important, which is to be one of my favorite questions on every job interview, prototypal inheritance. So we'll have a better understanding about why length works with strings and arrays. But for now, we can use it. So you can do that. I believe it will work. It works. Also, you can do something a bit different. So you can say, can we check if person is a string? And if it's a string, then push it. How do you check if person is a string, guys?
Triple equal sign. No, type of.
Type of person, triple equal string, right? It could be another approach, right? If the person is a string, add it. Yeah, it works. However, let me show you my favorite way of doing that. At some point, the JavaScript community realized, not that long ago, well, probably they realized many years ago, but at some point they decided to take an action. Because push, I mean, the others, but yeah, of course, sometimes, and shift, pop, yeah, of course, sometimes you may need them. But push is something that you are using all the time. And it's a bit weird to deal with such a complex and unpredictable API. So, in 2015, the JavaScript standard released something called concat. Concat is very similar to push, but smarter in two ways. First of all, if you try to add something weird, something unexpected, like an empty array to a list of strings, concat will ignore it. So if you use concat, you don't need any if else. Let's have a look. But that doesn't come for free. Why? Because, and now is the first time I'm talking about pure and impure functions. You hear that a lot from me and from Ray. So all the other methods, unshift, shift, pop, and push, they modify the original array. Yeah? If they receive an array of 2 elements, then they alter the size of the array. They add or they delete. Yeah? They modify. However, concat is smarter, I believe, because concat doesn't modify the original array.
So would you put it pure or impure?
Pure. This is a pure function.
Concat is pure.
Concat is pure. Why? Because, let me change that. You remember when you were 14 years old and you were playing, depending on how old you are, maybe Super Nintendo or PlayStation, and you went on holiday and a friend of you wanted to play that console, so you give the console with your 5 games that you sweat a lot to ask your parents to pay for them. Once you come back from holidays, if you gave 5 games to your friend, how many games did you expecting back? 5. You're not expecting 4, right? You want all your games back. So that's the same case, that's the same principle in JavaScript. If you're calling a function with an array of fruits, the function can do whatever you want, but don't touch my data. Yeah? So that's a good example. If I'm receiving an array of people, don't touch the array of people. Because maybe whoever is passing us the array needs to perform some extra operations afterwards. The beautifulness about concat is, rather than modifying the original array, it creates a copy. It creates a new array. So now it's up to you. We can use the original array, or we can use the new one. Yeah, that's why this example doesn't work. How many, if people has 3 characters, how many people will be in the list after calling the function? Wrong? 3, because concat is not modifying it. Concat is not modifying it. However, then you said, okay, then how do we use it? Because concat returns the new array, the copy. Concat returns the copy. So that means we can do that. That's pretty sexy, actually. It's like, okay, I have a list of 3 people. Create a copy, add a new one, and return it. But don't touch the original array. Yeah? So concat is definitely smarter. Concat is in JavaScript. Yeah, so that means that in React you can use it. Which one do you think is better, concat or push? This is a classic interview question, guys. You are going to get that question, concat versus push. That's a classic. Yeah. But now my next question will be: is there any scenario where push is better than concat?
Maybe when we want to do some conditions.
Okay, fair enough. The main reason is concat is smarter, it's more powerful, but that's not for free. I told you before that if you try to add something weird to the array, concat will reject it. Push, it doesn't matter. Push just adds everything to the basket. Yeah.
Is it something to do with primitive data?
With what?
Primitive data?
Primitive data? No. It's about performance. Push is much faster than concat. Why? Because push everything to the basket. Yeah. You know, push versus concat is like dad versus daughter, right? Daughter going to Tesco, all the groceries, everything to the basket, yeah, without any control, everything to the basket. Dad or mom, they tend to think about it before dropping the food into the basket, yeah? So that's the same principle. Even though concat is way smarter than push, it's way slower. And if you don't trust me, I'm going now to Google JavaScript push versus concat performance. So, according to this article, array push is 945 times faster than array concat. Yeah, it's a really good reading. And actually, there are some metrics. Look at this example. Let's add 10,000 elements to an array using both concat and push. So, look at the number of operations per second. With concat, we can add 0.4 elements on average per second. With push, we can add 338 elements per second. Okay? So just be careful with these things. In a real application, if you need to add 2 or 3 elements, I will use concat. But if you ever have to deal with a large data set, be careful. Yeah? And actually, I can now, that's leaderboards, that's a good example, right? So you know how many arrays we have here? Many. And this is just on the last 30 days. If I select from the beginning of the day, we got 1,500 arrays, and some of the arrays have hundreds of data. I pressed the button 10 seconds ago. It hasn't rendered yet. Yeah? But here you go. You see? It's very tough to deal. So in these particular cases, performance is clearly important. Any question, guys? No? So let me have a look at your code. So you see Sarah using typeof, which is all good. Simon using length, so we've also covered that. That's good. Any warning for Steffi? Shorter. All right. Yeah. I wasn't even looking at the structure. indentation, Steffi. That's very funny, but yeah. So that if should start here, yeah. And yeah, these two lines should start here, and that closing bracket, yeah.
You need space between the inequality sign and the 1.
Here, yes, you're right, Joshua. Yes, missing a space here as well. Cool. As you can see, it didn't work for Max just because of what we discussed today. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, good for Cam. What else? Yeah, name.length greater than 2. That's controversial, I believe, right? Because what happens if your person has, the name is 1 character? According to this algorithm, or even 2 characters, it will be ignored, right? Cool. So yeah, I think everybody pretty much struggled with that question in the same way, because that was the most complicated aspect, right? How to push. Any questions? No? All right, so we're a bit out of time, but I would like to do one more question about the REST operator. Very important. Is one of my favorite new features of modern JavaScript. I'm talking about question number 3. That's a classic problem in software programming. How do we merge 2 arrays? So we have 2 arguments, yeah? Array number 1, and then array number 2, and we want to join them. How do we join them? If you go to Stack Overflow, there are many valid answers over time. But now, we can use the REST operator. What's the REST operator, guys?
3 dots.
The 3 dots. Correct. So look at the way it works. If I got array 1, array 2, if I want to join them, I mean, I'll tell you something. I could even do something a bit crazy. Look, I could do array 2 dot for each number, and then for each number, I can do array 1 dot push or concat. So use push, array 1 dot push number. Yeah, you get my point? And now eventually return array 1. That's a bit weird, but I hope that will work. Let me have a look. Yeah, that's the classic way to solve it. That has many concerns. First of all, do you remember what I told you before about pure versus impure functions? Do you think the function is pure or impure? It's impure, right? Because even though array 2 hasn't been modified, array 1 will be altered. So if I pass 1, 2, 3 here, and 4, 5, 6 here, after calling my function, array 1 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, what the hell, right? You don't want that. If you don't want that, then you can do things like, okay, let's create a new variable, array 3. And now, so you can iterate twice. Array 1, yeah? So for array 1, let's push all the numbers. And for array 2, let's push all the numbers. So now, technically speaking, that method is pure, because we are not modifying array 1 or array 2. We just create a new array, and we fill it. So that should work as well. Correct. But just keep an eye on that algorithm, because now we can get the same result in literally 1 line. So with modern JavaScript, you can do that. Return. I want to return an array. Array. And then, can I do that? Not really. Not really. Why? Because that will create a nested array. Array 1 is an array. So in other words, if array 1 is 1, 2, 3, and array 2 is 4, 5, 6, it will return that. How many elements the returning array has?
2.
Correct. 2 elements. The first element is an array, and the second element is an array. but that's not really what we want. That's not really what we want. What we want is just a flat array, yeah? That's what we want. You see the difference, right? So, how do we transform that into this? Very simple. In here, you can type ... And here, you can type ... So that mechanism of the rest operator is what we call spread. Because we spread, we open it, yeah? Instead of returning an array, by using the spread operator, we just get rid of the brackets. Pop, pop. And same thing here. Instead of returning another array, we spread the values. Spread. Yeah? That's the most beautiful way of returning a new array without altering the input arrays.
Could we use flat?
Oh, flat. Where you've seen that?
On the internet.
Thank you. So that's very interesting.
Because I think that you could just write, that would be one line of code.
Yeah. So there is, you know that there is a new version of JavaScript every year. Every month of July, there is a new version of JavaScript. Arguably, the most important feature of this year JavaScript is a new method called flat. So with flat, you can perform pretty much the same thing. But I don't think we are supporting that yet. We need to create some dependencies. But yeah, if your platform supports flat, you can use flat. Yeah.
Is it pure or impure?
I think it's pure. I think it returns a new array, but I'm not sure. Again, this is end of July. It was like 3 months old. I didn't catch up with that yet. Yeah. But anyway, starting from 2015, that's the recommended way of creating a new array out of a list of existing arrays. Yeah. So that's one way of working with the rest operator, spreading. But it also works on the other way, gathering. Let me present you an example. Imagine that I have let me think about an example. So if I have a function called hello people, if I call it hello people and I pass Peter, so if that's the name, I can do return hello Peter. Oh, not Peter, sorry, hello name, right? You agree on that? What if I have in my party, it's not only one person, I have 2 people, right? All right, I can do name 1, name 2, hello, name 1, and name 2, yeah? And what if I have 3 people? You know, you can deal with that. But what happens if you don't know how many people is coming to the party? That happens, eh? You invite people, some people never shows up, some people you never met before, they suddenly appear and start drinking. That happens. Sometimes you cannot control that. Whenever you have an unknown list of arguments, so in this party you can have 3, on the next party you can have 2, in the next party you have no one, so you start drinking whiskey by yourself. You know, if you don't know how many arguments you have, how do you control that? Correct. Historically speaking, that has been challenging. Even though that seems pretty simplistic, historically speaking, that has been complicated. Now, thankfully, we have something called the spread operator, or the rest operator. So with the rest operator, we can do ... names. So, names, that means I don't care if I have 1 argument, 2 arguments, or 30 million arguments. I will gather. This is not about spreading. It's about gathering, collecting all the names in one variable. Can anyone figure out what type of variable is names now? It's an array. That's correct. That's correct, Nico. That's an array. Yeah. So we have an array of strings, and because we have an array of strings, then we can, I don't know, we can do names.forEach, and then say hello individually. I don't know. That's a separate problem. But that's the way you can gather, you can capture, you can collect a dynamic list of arguments. REST operator. Very, 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 very important aspect because it simplifies a lot. Yeah. Back to the original exercise that I already deleted, by the way. Not sure if I can bring it back. Just to compare the size of the problem. Yeah. 1 line versus 10 lines. Does size matter? In this particular case, looks like, yeah? Much simpler, less error prone. Again, let me invite you to play with the REST operator module on intermediate training. Cool. Let me quickly check how you solve it, and then we'll call it a day because we need to run retro. It's a bit late, unfortunately. All right, so that was question number 3. Cool. So Sarah. Yeah, perfect. REST operator, array 1, array 2, all good for Simon. Got 1 point. Max. That's interesting. It works. It works. He's using concat. Is this a pure or impure function? It's pure. He's not really modifying array 1 or array 2. So I like it. That's good. That's good. He's just not using a REST operator. Yeah. I mean, if you want to do that, whenever you have a variable and then you return it straight away, why don't you just do that? Yeah. That's fine. And it works, right? But yeah, that's an interesting strategy. All good for Cam. And what else? And all good for Damiano. Cool. Anything else, guys? No? Any question for Sarah or Cam or Damiano? No? Cool. So that was it, guys. It's retro time. Please write down your thoughts of the week. And actually, I think I said that last Friday. Starting from today, every retro is going to be run by someone else. Yeah. So I want you to give you the chance of running a retro session because that happens on some companies as well. If there is any volunteer, fantastic. If not, I'll randomly select any of you. Right? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sarah. Well, you can stay connected if you want for the retro. So please send me your thoughts on